So what I wanted to do is to talk about how I created a 3D printed camera holder to be able to insert to non-camera backpacks. So before I talk about this particular prototype, I wanted to just spend a bit of time talking about the considerations that I made in making such a design. First thing is I really wanted to create a design that is meant for a non-camera backpack such as this bag that I own. And the reason being, I find that the camera backpacks are not that functional for non-camera use. And even the ones that I have that are maybe good, that have a hybrid use case, it's a bit too rigid and heavy. And what I mean by that is, if I only wanted a one camera system, I really don't need all the extra padding. I guess it is overprotected just to be on the safe side, but I feel like it's, maybe a little bit on the liability side as well, because if you make a camera backpack and a user drops their bag and somehow the camera breaks, then they're probably liable to be sued. If you kind of know how to take care of your own camera and your bags and your own needs, then you can go as light and flexible as you can afford. Again, back to the design considerations. So the first thing I wanted is I wanted to take a backpack, and I wanted to modify it so that I can insert my hand and just grab the camera like this, right? There's two things about that. First of all, okay, why don't you just put the camera at the bottom of the bag and just pull it out as needed? The first thing about that is the protection, right? Okay, I don't want much protection, but it also can't be sitting at the bottom of the bag and subject to when you accidentally drop your backpack on the floor. The second thing is, if I seriously wanted to use the backpack for other uses, putting a jacket, putting lunch, putting books and stuff in it, if the camera is just meant to sit at the bottom of the bag, then you always have to be constantly shifting the contents, pulling a jacket out or pulling whatever's on top out so that you can take the camera in and out. So I didn't like it to be at the bottom of the bag and unprotected. So that's really the main consideration. In terms of what else I wanted to carry, I really didn't want to carry much else, right? Like I'm just imagining the use case where I'm just traveling, and all I need is one camera with the lens on, nothing else really. Maybe lens cleaner, but that's that's the shape of a pen, so it could just go where pens normally go in a backpack. But even spare batteries, like this camera that I use takes about 300 shots, and for my own needs, I don't even need any spare batteries, not even a battery bank. But although those things are okay, but the main thing about the camera portion is that I didn't need to have two bodies, or I didn't need to have 3 lenses with me, because what I'm thinking about is just for walk around solo travel. And while the photography is important, I think it's about 50-50 with actually enjoying the vacation itself. And so, if I don't catch the photo, I don't catch the photo. If the camera runs out of batteries, then I just switch to my smartphone. It's no big deal. I'm not losing money or anything like that just by not having taken the photo with a proper camera. There's actually not much to my design considerations. The biggest consideration about it is that I wanted to be able to fish out the camera relatively close to the top. So in effect, I needed to design something such that the camera is actually sitting at the top. There are a lot of camera inserts such as this Tenba bag, which I probably should review. They are the first thing people would think of when modifying a non-camera bag to become a camera backpack. So what I wanted to do is something like this, right? So have it sitting like this somehow in my bag, so that I can pull it in and out like this on the go, right? And especially I like it that the grip is up and not like this. so that it is easier to grab. But the second thing about this design is I wanted it relatively close to the top, right? Again, if I had this design, something like this where I could grab it easily near the top of the bag. So if I had it way at the bottom, like this, so I would either have to commit to not piling anything on top of the camera insert, or I would have to keep adjusting whatever else I have in the bag so that I can grab the camera. The problem with some of these inserts is many of them are designed not for quick access, right? It's just meant to transport cameras, which is totally fine, but everything is kind of disassembled, or like it would open up this way so that you can't really, you'd have to take the whole case out in order to access the camera. So I didn't like those kind of designs. Initially, I did prototype it using cardboard, and I had some other designs in mind. I'll just put those up here. As you can see, since I had all that unused space at the bottom, I decided, okay, I didn't really need it, but might as well just put a shelf or a bay for an extra lens or a battery pack and so on. So that's what I did. I first prototyped using cardboard, but next what I ended up doing is going to the dollar store and buying these kind of playmats, foam playmats for kids, and it's about less than a centimeter thick, so 8 millimeters or so. I think it's enough protection, and it's kind of rigid enough to maybe hold its shape. And so using a combination of this material and contact cement, I made my first design. And so this is kind of what it looks like here. And you can see that's the shelf that mimics this. So essentially the deeper end is for the camera itself, and then the shallow end is for the lens to sit on. The good thing about this as well is it is kind of flexy, but also rigid. This particular size was able to fit my X-T2, X-T20, and F2 size primes. And so, and it even fit my G85. So it basically could fit almost all combinations of my cameras. And so that was perfectly fine. This is how it would sit inside the insert. This only solves the form factor of the insert part, but as I said, I wanted it a bit taller so that when I insert it fully into a bag, this would be closer to the opening. So this is sort of the taller version of that. It's got the same shelf there for the camera, and now it's taller so that when I insert it into the backpack, it sits relatively close to the top, right? I mean, I could have arbitrarily designed this to be as close to the top as I wanted, but I thought this was a good compromise as to where it sat versus, you know, taking up more foam, which adds more weight, and so on. I had different iterations of this. As I said, since I made it double height and I only really needed the top half for the camera, I might as well insert stuff at the bottom, shelves and stuff at the bottom, in order for me to not waste the space. So I basically made little cutouts here. They don't look that good because my arts and crafts technique is actually not the best, and I was a bit impatient. But the idea for this was, you know, this would fit something like a battery bank, and this would fit something like a lens. I guess I could put it sideways as well, right? And then there's a lip to prevent it from rolling out. I only made a shelf here, which is a bit so that this lens at the bottom doesn't bounce around too much, but technically I guess I could put an SD card case here. Realistically, I wasn't even going to put any of these, especially if I'm just within my own city. I typically just carry, it would use this as an insert, but then I would leave the bottom empty. The thing about this design that I didn't like, or this kind of design, is it's really hard to make lids, right? So I would have loved to have like a covering here so that things don't really fall out, but it's really hard to do it using this kind of material. One thing I did think about was making a lid for the top, so that again, if I use this bag for travel and I put this and I put this backpack in the overhead compartment, the bag will usually go like this or even beyond horizontal while it's in the stow position. And so what I thought, okay, you know, the camera will fall out. The camera will fall out if the bag is like sitting that way. Again, I didn't have a real solution for a lid, so what I did was I took another foam type material, which is this. It's kind of the camping line, the camping pad, sleeping pad type material, or the yoga mat type material. Again, these are all dollar store things, and Velcro. And I basically made a lid like this. It's not going to take any damage if you hit it from the top, but it is stiff enough that if you had the bag kind of upside down or above horizontal like this, that this would stop the camera from falling out. Yeah, and then when I'm not using it, I just place it on the side like this. It's a bit of a, I think it's kind of a lame design, but it was the best I could do at the time. I kind of made this during the COVID time, and I wasn't traveling anywhere, so I pretty much didn't really, put this to the test. Kept these empty, and I really just used just the top compartment of the camera insert. That's actually my design. I had tried it using other materials as well. So in this photo, you can see that first I had the design where the compartment was actually front facing, which means you'd have to pull the case out in order to access the bottom, which again I was fine with, but I converted back to this design where with side access, because it goes into the bag this way, so you can kind of fish out the stuff on the side without having to pull the whole case out. I even tried making it using this material, which is kind of, I don't exactly know what it is, but I think it has something to do with crochet. What I liked is that because of the square regularity of the squares, it was kind of easy to cut. Plus also you can dovetail the material together. And also it was actually very light. It was quite light. The only thing I didn't like was that I basically had to use white duct tape to tape it together, because there was no other way to do it. But the design is actually kind of nice. So I could have ended it there and just, had used this. One thing I didn't like about this design was that it was kind of boxy. And so even as you saw, I was trying to insert it into this bag. This is pretty much the minimum width that I could do because of the specific camera I own, but also because of the thickness of the playmat. I really couldn't go any thinner, right? But this is a little bit too boxy, and so it does kind of jut out a little bit, and so that's why I thought, okay, maybe I can do something better. This other prototype I had used to be double height as well, but I guess I threw it out eventually. But what I realized was that I can use this one and place it inside like a messenger bag if I wanted to do the same thing, right? So again, I would have the bag, I would have the camera inserted like this. Depending on your needs, maybe you don't even need any cushioning if you do it for a bag this small, but I kind of like the option of being able to do that. And one thing is it did make the bag a bit square. It was obviously there was some material there while it was in use, again because of that boxy thick design. I could have made the design such that the bottom section was removable, so that I can use the exact same insert for whether I'm going to use it for a small bag like this, a messenger bag like this, or if I needed the height for a backpack, I could attach the bottom part and then be able to insert it for a bag like this, right? That's where I now end up with my last design, which is this. So this is the 3D printed design that I ended up with. It is a prototype. It looks a bit, you know, you can see where I put the contact cement and so on. But let me just go through the different parts. First of all, this is now what the insert looks like. I cut it to shape so that it really fits my specific camera, so it's not as universal. If I had, you know, a new camera or a longer lens, it really wouldn't fit, but it still fits all of the cameras that I mentioned before. The XT series with the f2 lenses, and my G85 with some prime lenses that I own. But anyway, this is how it looks like here. I exposed the top a little bit. Partly it is to save material, but really it's because I was trying to save weight. This insert, although it is shorter and also, you know, streamlined a bit, it's almost twice as heavy as this one. So that was one thing that I really couldn't get around. And so I tried to print it using, you know, the thinnest wall filling settings and so on. But anyway, now that's really the main reason that I exposed the top a little bit more. As you can see, I made it more into this shape so that it really fits the camera and lens together. So this is kind of the analogous compartments here. This flat part is just to be able to put something like a battery bank in. And then this part, I took out the top shelf, but now it's still meant to carry, let's say, just one lens. Second thing I did here is, because this is now hard material, I did have to line it with felt, and so you can see, you know, it's a bit shoddy craftsmanship, but I did line the insides with this felt material. It's almost like the kind of material that would be inside like an eyeglass case. So it's this material, and it has an adhesive backing. So I basically cut those to shape and stuck it on the walls. But yeah, I got this from Amazon. But yeah, it's a common arts and crafts felt material. The last thing, to address what I mentioned about, you know, having just one case that I could use both for a messenger bag or a taller backpack, I basically had two sections of this, and I stuck them on with Velcro so that I can have just this part if I want to carry it inside. But if I wanted it to fit inside a backpack, then I could just attach the bottom here, just roughly. And so this is what it would look like. Okay. So anyway, that's my simple 3D printed design. Potentially, if I had to make another design, first of all, I think I might do away with this L-shaped thing. I think I don't really gain anything by having this available within the bag. I probably will just make it more like a trapezoid shape. Although it does fit the XT2 quite well, the G85, it does still fit, but you could tell it's pretty much just applying pressure on this corner if I insert it. And so yeah, so that will be one design change. What I don't like about it is that although this is much slimmer than this, it's still twice as heavy, and so now I'm kind of getting into camera backpack territory if I take a backpack like this and insert a somewhat heavy 3D printed insert. I think it does have a use case, and again, for especially during this COVID time where I'm just going in and out of my house, taking pictures in my own city, I really don't need to carry around a camera backpack, and I just carry around my regular backpack with this insert inside. That's my 3D printed camera insert design for regular non-camera backpacks.